Welcome to Fabric Monday. Today we'll talk about variable libraries, a new feature in Microsoft Fabric recently announced. Let's discover what it is. Variable libraries. They are used to control variable values during the creation of an application lifecycle. What exactly this means? We are talking about the development process, the use of multiple stages in the development process: development, test, and production. When we promote elements across these stages, we would like to be operating over different objects, and sometimes with different values. Sometimes we have a set of parameters that these objects need to use, and we would like these parameters to be different in development, in test, and in production. I already wrote an article about this in relation to this and the usage of this feature in notebooks, not the variable libraries, but achieving this result with notebooks using a JSON file. You'll find this article in the comments of this video. But what are the variable libraries? What the variable libraries actually do? They are actually coming to allow us to execute this task, make different parameters, different values according each environment, each development environment, without any need of workaround or much additional development. Let's imagine we have a lifecycle scenario. I will demonstrate the variable libraries using this lifecycle scenario, and we have a lakehouse, we have a notebook, the notebook makes changes to the lakehouse, and we have a pipeline. The pipeline triggers the notebook and passes a parameter to the notebook, and we will use the variable library. The variable library will need to set the parameter the pipeline will pass to the notebook. That's the purpose of this example. There is another interesting point to analyze in relation to this. The variable libraries could be great to define data sources and destinations. It could be great for that. But when using deployment pipelines in Power BI, this is adjusted automatically. I will demonstrate that the notebook will automatically adjust from the lakehouse in development to the lakehouse in test to the lakehouse in production. The deployment pipeline automatically adjusts from the notebook in development to the notebook in test to the notebook in production. The objects adjust their reference automatically. The few references that they could not adjust automatically, we can use deployment pipeline rules to adjust. But besides that, we always have some parameters, some values that we need to change as well. That's where it comes into place, the variable library. Let's see a demonstration about how it works. Here I have my workspace in the Power BI portal. My workspace is called VSET Demo 01. This is development workspace. I have a Demo 02, which is the test workspace, and the VSET Demo 03, which is the production workspace. I have the objects as I illustrated in the PowerPoint. I have a lakehouse, a notebook, and a pipeline. Now I want to create the variable set. How do I create the variable set? Before I start using the variable set, I need to be sure the feature is enabled. I need to go to the admin portal and ensure the variable library is enabled. My tenant is enabled to use variable libraries. In this case, I can create a variable library in my workspace. Let's create one. New item, variable library, my V library. The variable library is created. Now I need to start to create the variables. To understand the variable, we need to understand a bit more about our scenario. I have here the notebook I'll be using in this example. This notebook is making a simple update in one table in the lakehouse. But it receives a parameter to make this update. It will multiply the unit price by a parameter. Then comes my variable library. I want this parameter to be different in development environment, in test environment, and in production environment. Of course, this is only a very simple example, but that's the idea, that we can control values in the environments of a development lifecycle. Let's call this variable multiplier. This will be string. Why will be string? A multiplier is numeric. The variable library is still in preview, and in preview, the integration with pipelines only work if the variable is string. It's not accepting other types. Then I will define the value. So I created the variable and the value. And now, how do I define multiple environments? Inside the variable library, I can define a value set. Add the value set. And I give a name for this value set. This value set will be test. For the test environment. Create. I create a value set for the test environment and another one. Prod. For the production environment. In this way, I have the full value set, a value set for the test environment, and another one for the production environment. For test, I put 1.5. For prod, I put 2. So each environment has a different value, and the default value set is active. This means that the one which will be used in the development environment is the default value set. When I would like to change the value set, make one environment use a different value set, I need to set the value set as active. Let's save this variable library. That's it, the variable library is saved. Now I need to use that variable. I use that variable in the pipeline. Let me open this pipeline. Here is my data pipeline. It's calling in the notebook, which makes updates in the lakehouse. In order to use the variable from the variable library, the first thing I need to do is to map the variable from the library to inside my data pipeline. In library variables on the lower bar of the data pipeline, I create new and I map from my library which variable? The multiplier. I can call it as a multiplier. I could call it another name. Doesn't mind. Doesn't mind if inside the pipeline I use the same name as the library or a different name. Then I use this variable. I need to pass this variable to the notebook parameter. Let's double check the name of the parameter in the notebook. The name of the parameter in the notebook is multiplication. So base parameters, the parameter multiplication is a parameter of type float and will receive a dynamic content. I need to build the expression to retrieve the variable library. Here, there is a 3 dots here. This means that I have additional options to retrieve variables and library variables. And I can retrieve the multiplier I created. That's it. But my variable in the library is a string and the parameter is float. In this case, I need to convert it. Conversion functions, I need to make a conversion to float. Adjust expression, that's it. So I have my expression set and my pipeline will be using the variable from my variable library. My variable library uses the value 1 in development, 1.5 in test and 2 in production. Let's try this in test or production. Let's not try this in development because the value is only 1. The next step is to promote these objects. In order to promote these objects, I need to use my deployment pipeline. So use my deployment pipeline to promote the objects. Let's make a comparison. It is advising the objects which I have different from one environment to another: the pipeline, the notebook, and the variable library. I will promote all of them. Deploy. That's it, my objects are deployed to the test environment. Let's take a look how the test environment is at this moment. Here I have the test environment, the vset demo 02. Let's update the variable library. The variable library is still defining the default value set as active, but in the test environment I want the value set to be the test one. So I set the test value set as active and save the variable library. In the future, we should expect to have a rule, a deployment pipeline rule to change this kind of information, but this doesn't exist yet. You see, if I try to define rules for the deployment pipeline, the variable library is not included, it doesn't appear. Now I changed the full value set for the variable library, I can execute my pipeline in the test environment. The unit price in the test environment at this moment is 4.10. Let's see what will happen after the execution of my pipeline. Let's get back to the pipeline and run the pipeline. While this pipeline is running in the test environment, we can get back to the deployment pipeline and make the comparison between test and production. We will see the same difference: the pipeline, the notebook, and the library. Let's promote them. That's it, my objects are in production now. Here I'm looking to the workspace in production, vset demo 03. I need to open my variable library in production, and I need to change the full value set to prod and save. Let's see what will happen after I execute my pipeline in production. Back to the workspace, I open my pipeline in production and execute. My pipeline over the test environment already completed the execution. Now I need to check how are the values in the lakehouse in my test environment. Let's take a look. Here is the lakehouse in the test environment, and we can notice that the values are updated. Unit price is 6.15. Remember what it was before. It was 4.10. And we asked it to increase 1.5 to multiply it by 1.5, so the result is 6.15. This is the result in the test environment. Let's take a look on the result on the production environment. And here is the result in the production environment. The unit price is now 8.20. It was multiplied by 2, a different multiplier in the production environment. Of course, this example is a very silly example. The purpose is to show how the variable library can change configurations across different environments in the development lifecycle. After seeing the demonstration, let's take a look on what's missing. What should we expect in relation to the evolution of the variable libraries? So what's missing? The default value set can be renamed. We create many value sets, but the default one keeps its name. We can't rename it. There is no deployment rule to change the active value set. I had to go one by one in each environment and change the active one. The pipelines only accept the string type from variable libraries. This is a big limitation. And notebooks and other objects are not supporting variable libraries yet. This is a starting feature. We should expect way more from this feature when the deployment pipeline can automatically change the active value set, the pipelines accept other kinds of values besides the strings, and the notebooks start supporting the variable libraries. When all this is improved, this feature will be absolutely great. Thank you very much for watching and see you next week.